Okay, I think we're ready. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, if I can have the count of the voters present, please, for the constable. We have 117. We have a quorum calling the special town meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the tellers please come forward to be sworn?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear to perform the duties as town meeting tellers lawfully and impartially to the best of your abilities, so help you God? Thank you.
And would the clerk please read the warrant?
Special town meeting, June 11th, 2025, 6:00 p.m. Plymouth SS to either of the constables of the town of Whitman. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed and notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Whitman qualified to vote in elections and town affairs and to meet in the town hall in said Whitman on Wednesday, the 11th day of June, 2025 at 6:00 p.m. Then and there to act upon the following articles: Article 2, Article 3, and Article 4. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof in not less than 8 public places in the town 14 days at least before the day of said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of the warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of holding said meetings. Given under our hands this 27th day of May 2025. Select Board, Dr. Carl F. Kowalski, Chair. Daniel L. Salvucci, Vice Chair. Justin R. Evans, Clerk. Sean M. Kane, Member. And Laura J. Howe, Member. Warrant attestation. I hereby certify that virtue of the within warrant, I have posted 8 copies of said warrant in the various sections of town with 2 copies in each precinct, dated May 28th, 2025, attested by Constable William Sharnick. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to go over a few of the ground rules for tonight, all voters must be sitting in the designated areas here unless I've given you permission otherwise. All amendments must be submitted in writing and must be signed. Massachusetts General Laws, Articles 1, 2, 3 of the Town Bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order govern the conduct of this special town meeting. To speak, please raise your hand and be obvious and wait to be recognized by me. Once you're recognized, you can stand and go to the nearest microphone. There's one in the center, there's one in the balcony, there's one here, and state your name and your address. Confine your comments to the article or question that's on the floor, and you may not speak a second time until everyone else who wants to speak has had a chance to do so. I want to recognize the Finance Committee. These folks who are sitting here in front, they're volunteers. They do a very important work for the town. They scrutinize financial articles and provide recommendations to this meeting. Please join me in thanking them for their service. All right. Ms. Carter, or Mr. Kowalski.
Carl Kowalski, 44 Simmons Avenue. It seems like I was just here yesterday talking to roughly the same group of people. We had a very interesting town meeting in which we agreed to fund our departments to the best of our ability by the use of an override. Unfortunately, that override was soundly defeated at the polls, so we've had to do some work in between that town meeting and this special town meeting. The Finance Committee and the schools and the selectmen are actually in a position in which they all agree on what we need to do tonight, and that's not something that always happens around here. I have to give particular credit to the superintendent of schools, Jeff Simonak, who has done something that isn't done very often also, and that is to agree that the assessment to the town can be lowered some to make this year one that we can get through, even though it's going to be difficult to get through. I think this is the third time that I've said this, but I need to say it again. I remember when I was in school reading The Wizard of Oz, not as a fairy tale, but as a sort of a text to how you handle changes. Huge change in The Wizard of Oz. Everything was normal until all of a sudden a tornado hits and everything is flying and everything is going every place. And little Dorothy and her dog are left with some companions who felt that they were missing some qualities. There was a scarecrow who couldn't think, and there was a lion who didn't have any courage. And who was the third one? The Tin Man. What was the Tin Man's problem? Had no heart. It's okay. So we had people who felt that they couldn't think, they couldn't feel, and they couldn't act with any kind of courage. But the way that what they learned in this tale is that they had it in themselves. They had it all along. They didn't need a wizard to give it to them. In our town meeting a few weeks ago, and the town meeting tonight, I hope it did it a few weeks ago, and I hope it does tonight. I hope it remembers a motto, and that motto is to use your head and follow your heart and act with courage. Whitman always does that, and I hope they do it tonight. Thank you very much.
Ms. Carter?
Thank you. Mary Beth Carter, 896 Auburn Street. Thank you all for attending tonight's special town meeting to complete the business of voting the fiscal year 2026 Article 2, which is the town's annual budget. As we all know, this has been an extremely challenging budget year. At the May 5th annual town meeting, the town was facing a deficit of over $2 million. And since the recent annual town election resulted in a failed override ballot question, the town was faced with the difficult task of making several fiscal year 2026 budget reductions. I would like to thank the superintendent of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District, Jeff Simonak, and the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee for voting last Wednesday evening to certify the reduced operating assessment suggested by the town in the amount of $19,917,569. This reduced assessment, certified by the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee, equates to a 4.09 increase over last year's operating assessment to the town. I would also like to thank the Assistant Town Administrator, the Select Board, the Accountant's Office, the FinCom Chair Kathleen Otina, and the town department heads for their cooperation in putting forth a balanced budget to all of you this evening. I would like to give a special thanks as well to both John Galvin and Frank Lynham for their participation in the fiscal year 2026 budget working group. The reductions that are reflected in tonight's special town meeting warrant were necessary to close the fiscal 2026 deficit. Every budget reduction that was made was done so only after careful consideration and analysis. Before any reductions in personnel were considered to reduce the deficit, every departmental budget was examined for possible budget savings. After budget expense lines were reviewed for possible reductions, we then looked at those positions that had increased from part-time to full-time in the past several years to determine which positions could be reverted back to their part-time status. Only after this was done did we look at further reductions in personnel. The budget decisions that were ultimately made to reduce personnel further were not taken lightly, as we know that behind every personnel reduction is an employee that will be impacted. The following is a list of salary reductions that were made to close the fiscal 2026 budget gap. The Assessor's Office. A vacant administrative assistant position was not funded. Town Clerk's Office. One clerical position was not funded. In the Police Department, the all other services union salary line, budget line was reduced by the equivalent of 2 police office salaries, plus an additional reduction of approximately $100,000, which had been added to this line in May, on the May 5th annual town meeting warrant. In the fire department, the all other services union salary budget line was reduced by the equivalent of 2 firefighters' salaries. And there was some discussion this evening at our select board meeting that I believe Sean Kane will explain. In the building inspector's office, the full-time building inspector zoning enforcement officer position was reduced to a part-time position from a full-time as it had previously been for over 24 years. DPW, Highway and Parks. The union labor salaries line was reduced by the equivalent of 2 employees' salaries. This will result in 1 vacant position not being filled, and the balance of the budget reduction will be realized by a reduction in overtime, non-snow and ice overtime, and the leaf pile not being open in the fall and in the spring, according to the Superintendent of Highway and Parks, Bruce Martin. In the Health Department, the administrative assistant position is being reduced from 28 hours per week to 20 hours per week, reverting back to the schedule it was previously. Council on Aging, 1 part-time clerical position was not funded. Veteran Services, the Veteran Services Officer position was reduced from full-time to part-time, 31 hours to 24 hours per week, and this position had been a part-time position in the past at some point. The library, 1 part-time library technician position was not funded. There is currently 1 vacant full-time library technician position, which will not be immediately filled in order to avoid a layoff in the library. Recreation. The Recreation Department budget had been completely eliminated initially. However, after meeting with the Recreation Director, Kathleen Woodward, she stated that she'd be able to fund the staff salaries and the department expenses out of the revolving fund in fiscal 2026. Therefore, only the Recreation Director's salary needed to be funded in Article 2. The Recreation Department had already filled 6 weeks of summer camp, which would need to be refunded to the residents if the department were not funded this year. According to the director, pool hours and special events such as the July 4th and Easter festivities are expected to be reduced due to the limited funds that will be available in fiscal year 2026. What is being presented this evening is a balanced fiscal year 2026 Article 2 budget. I ask that you please support the budget as presented in tonight's warrant. The town has a legal obligation to approve a balanced budget by July 1st in order to expend funds in fiscal 2026. Please know that there were no easy choices in reducing the budget this year to close the deficit. The budget presented this evening was recommended by both the Select Board and the FinCom, and I believe that Kathleen Otina will speak on that, and I urge you to vote the Article 2 budget as presented this evening. While I expect there will be many questions regarding the reductions to Article 2, I ask that we all be respectful of everyone's comments and opinions tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Otina.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kathleen Otina, 344 Washington Street, Chair of the Whitman Finance Committee. On May 17, 2025, the voters of the town of Whitman voted overwhelmingly not to support a $2 million Proposition 2.5 override. That resulted in the need to cut $2,053,431 from a budget that we had spent months working on. We had 25 days to develop a new budget. One early decision was how to distribute the deficit. Although the town cannot impose cuts on the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District, we proceeded with a 48%, 52% split hoping the school committee would lower its assessment to the town by just over $1 million, while the town's share was just under $1 million. At this point, I want to recognize the superintendent of schools and the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee for the very difficult decision they made to cooperate with the town's recommendation. You didn't have to, but we're between a rock and a hard place, and there weren't any easy choices. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you, school committee members. To handle the $988,665 deficit that the town was facing, we used free cash to pay OPEB and to make a contribution to the Plymouth County retirement expense. That left $648,000 to cut from the remainder of the town's line items in Article 2. The recommendations you have before you tonight represent the efforts of Town Administrator Mary Beth Carter, working with department heads to arrive at a budget that maintains the services the residents of Whitman have come to expect, while minimizing the number of employees who will lose their jobs. I'm not going to go line by line, as the town administrator has already told you where the cuts are coming from. But I'll tell you that on June 4th, 2025, the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee voted to reduce the operating assessment by $1,064,000 compared to the assessment voted on the May 25th, 2025 town meeting. With the reduction in Hanson's operating assessment, the school department reduced its operating budget from $66 million to $64 million for a 2% increase in its fiscal 26 operating budget. Those cuts include the elimination of one administrative position, 3 elementary classroom teachers, 3 middle school teachers, 2 high school teachers, 6 elementary math interventionists, 5 middle school interventionists, the library aides at the 2 middle schools. In total, 23 positions were eliminated from the school department. Through the transfers to open positions, through resignations, retirements, and non-renewals, or positions currently filled by long-term subs, a total of 3 individuals will be laid off. Just as the town administrator explained, efforts were made to minimize the impact. Every person who loses their job is important. But although 23 positions were eliminated, 3 long-term employees will be laid off, and the rest will be filling other positions in fiscal 26. The services provided by the interventionists and the library aides will be lost, class sizes will increase, and there will, in all likelihood, be an increase in athletic and activity fees, although that has not yet been voted by the school committee, placing the burden on families to sustain those extracurricular programs. Without the cooperation of the superintendent of schools and the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee, balancing the fiscal 26 budget would not have been accomplished. These are difficult times with no easy or painless solutions, and I want to again acknowledge the cooperation of the school department. These decisions were not made overnight. I've been in constant contact with the town administrator, either by phone or in person. Lengthy discussions took place between the town administrator and every department head. Not everyone agreed with the decisions, and there may be plans different from different constituencies to lobby for alternative budget cuts tonight. But given the compressed time frame to arrive at a balanced budget, the Finance Committee voted tonight 6-2-1 abstention to recommend the budget voted by the Select Board and printed in tonight's warrant under the column Select Board's recommendations for fiscal 26. Those are the Finance Committee recommendations. I have received multiple suggestions that the Finance Committee should have met to consider alternatives to a balanced budget, and I regret that the timeline precluded any reasonable opportunity to carefully consider suggestions that have been brought forward. The balanced budget presented to you represents a cut of over $2 million, most of that coming from salary line items. Yet, due to the careful approach taken by both the town administrator and the school superintendent, a total of 5 employees are slated to be laid off. Others have reduced hours. Many teachers have been transferred to new positions. Significant cuts in the school and town services have been made, but the bulk of the services that the residents of Whitman have come to expect remain intact. We urge town meeting to approve Article 2 as presented to you tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Kane.
Thank you. I just wanted to update town meeting and the finance committee actually about a discussion we just had in the Board of Selectmen's meeting. We had a meeting from 5:30 to 6, and this was kind of at the heart of our discussion. I'm unhappy with the way that public safety kind of landed with this budget. To address that, try to come up with a solution to take the edge off the cuts for both the police and fire. They are part of our strategic plan, is listed as a priority for the town, and it was obvious after Article 2 came out that we'd crossed the threshold that they weren't comfortable with. For that reason, this is the proposal that we discussed and then voted on. Right now, the ambulance revenue account takes in a healthy amount of money. If we decrease ambulance runs, staffing, then we'll obviously take in less revenue, which would be foolish. So we voted to use $150,000 of ambulance revenue towards staffing for both police and fire. We're also going to work with the police department to find other ways that they could potentially add to some of the shifts that they're currently lacking. It's a safety issue that we're not comfortable with. I don't want to bend the rules of finance, obviously, in a way that's going to put us in a difficult situation, but this seems to be an obvious and solution that's a compromise, but also in the best interest of both public safety, our priorities, and financially. So the update is the select board voted today to use $150,000. This doesn't have to be part of Article 2, but we're using $150,000 out of ambulance revenue account to move towards police and fire to help fund unfilled shifts. Thank you.
Okay. Chief Clancy.
Tim Clancy, 21 Bloss Road, your fire chief. After great discussion, long discussion with the Board of Selectmen, it was discussed about that 150 out of ambulance revenue, and I'll tell you where it came from. The equivalent cut for the fire department was going to be 2 positions, whether it was through a permanent or an interim cut in services. So we could anticipate our ambulance would go down second ambulance would go down approximately half the time. Rudimentary math, as I explained it to the Board of Selectmen, we're anticipated to make $1.4 million this year. You could see a revenue cut of $700,000 if we only ran 1 ambulance. They came up with the solution of 75 to police and fire, and there'll be another revenue source. I have the possibility to make us whole in the fall if we come back for a fall special meeting. There will be a revenue source for that so that we can maintain the services to the community. There's plenty of people in this room tonight that have been affected by Whitman Fire Rescue. They're true professionals. They've saved numerous lives on a routine basis, and shame on me, I don't publicize it enough. But I will tell you, not only as a speaker of this, but they have saved me once. And I'll be forever indebted to that. They're great professionals. We've had a lot of calls recently, and to decrease that second ambulance would decrease our revenue, but also increase our reliance on mutual aid. And there's many communities around us right now that are facing the same battle that we are. And our mutual aid runs in circles. For rudimentary discussion, it just goes out farther and farther. And without a doubt, if this was not to work, to keep that second ambulance running, you could have a significant wait time in the crisis time of a medical emergency or losing a life one, and also as well as our fire responses. So I thank you for your time.
All right, we'll proceed to Article 2. To determine how much money the town will raise and appropriate for general government, protection of persons and property, health and sanitation, public works, veterans benefits, education, library, recreation, and unclassified, specifying what appropriations shall be taken from the receipt of a department or take any other action relative thereto. We have a motion. A second? Okay. What we're going to do here then, folks, we'll take just a couple of minutes to look this over, and then what I will do is I will call out the lines. There's 35 lines in all, in 10-line increments. And if you have a question about any of those lines, at that time you can shout out the number of the question, and we will exempt those from the vote. Once we have all of the questioned items listed, we will then take one vote on the remainder of the budget, all of the unquestioned items. And from then on, we will go back to each of the question items, discuss them, and vote on them individually. All right, so we take just a few minutes to review, and then we'll get started on that. Okay, folks, let's dig into this. So as I mentioned, we have 35 lines. Does anybody have any questions on lines 1 through 10? Just shout out the number. I'm sorry, you have to say it loud. We have poor acoustics in this room. Line 2. 8. 9. All right, lines 11 through 20. 17. 14. 16. All right, lines 21 to 30. 21. 26. 23. 24. 26. And then finally, lines 30 through 35. 35. All right, the lines I have questioned then are lines 2, 8, 9, 14, 16, 17, 21, 23, 24, 26, and 35. Are there others? 28. Okay, then we will vote now on all of the unquestioned line items. According to the numbers that's here on your sheet, the Select Board recommendation, which we know now is also the Finance Committee recommendation. All right, all in favor of the unquestioned line items, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Carries, motion carries. Okay. Who had a question on line 2? Ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Mary.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Ma'am, you're not. I recognize this lady here. You can go next. You'll be next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Michelle Winnett, 308 Rainer Ave. I just had a question on the administrative assistant for the Select Board. We're cutting all the others, and there doesn't seem to be any loss there. Is that something that was looked at?
Ms. Carter?
Sorry, the question was that looked at? Yes, all of them were. You know, every single line item was certainly looked at. But we are not heavy as far as upper management. We don't have a town planner. We do not have an separate HR director. So what Kathleen Keefe does as the assistant town administrator, I don't think people understand the extent of what she does, but certainly that line was looked at, and I can certainly go over what she does for the town.
I was looking at the administrative assistant.
I'm sorry.
The third line.
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
And the administrative assistant, yes, so you're looking at the increase there?
Yes, an increase, and we've cut administrative and clerical assistants everywhere else.
Actually, no, we're not cutting them out everywhere else, but some departments, yes. But the Select Board's office, with the volume of work that goes through that office, could not function without an administrative assistant. That's a absolutely very, very busy office. We, interact with every single town department, and the work that goes through there is something that couldn't be absorbed by the assistant town administrator or the town administrator. So that is an essential function for us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ma'am? Could you face me, please, ma'am?
Oh, sure, as long as they can hear.
They can hear.
Everybody else, okay. My name is Mary Fox. I live at 565 Washington Street, Apartment 5. I have a question. I was not aware that the selectmen drew a salary. I'm looking at selectmen salaries, $347,434. The reason I'm looking at this is, to my knowledge, we have 5 selectmen. Just correct me anytime I'm wrong. And I think for many, if not most of them, it is a second income. They have a lot to say here. I believe they negotiate contracts, and they are elected without term limits. I'm a little concerned. That's a lot of money in my life, and a lot for the taxpayers. I just want you to know, if there are any teachers laid off, many of them are not making what these men, as a second income, are making, and one lady. So I'm a little concerned. I will be up regarding the schools, but I'd like to know exactly why they're drawing a salary, and then I never knew that. I've lived here for 16 years.
Ms. Carter.
Yes, thank you. So just to clarify, the Select Board does not receive any compensation whatsoever. What that line represents is the total salaries for the Select Board section of items listed there under 2, budget line 2. That would be the town administrator's salary, the assistant town administrator's salary, the administrative assistant's salary, the recording secretary, and the municipal hearing officer. So everything that has to do with salaries, but it's not for the Select Board.
But it does indicate selectmen's salaries. That's what I'm reading in number 2.
Well, the title of that department is the Select Board. And so for every department, for the major departments, it's broken down between the name of the department for salaries and the name of the department for the expense. But it's...
I see that, but I guess there's my misunderstanding about the select men, woman, select people, and the Select Board. I'm still not getting that. And I read this before I even came. And I must congratulate everybody in the job you did to reduce it from 2 million to 1.7. But I have a little saying, I am not just a New Yorker, I am a Yankee on my mother's side. Use it up, wear it out. Make it do or do without. I will check for the next budget. This one we really have no choice, or do we? What is the next option if we don't vote for this?
If we don't vote Article 2 this evening, and we do not have a budget by July 1st, we do not go on a 1/12 budget like the schools, according to our attorney. So the town would not have any appropriation and anything to spend, salaries, expenses, as of July 1st. So it's very important that we do get our budget voted tonight. To have another meeting, we'd need 14 days posting, and to draw that up and meet with the selectmen, I don't see that happening before July 1st. And it's imperative that the town does have a budget to run the town as of July 1st.
And the school is included in this.
The school's operating assessment is part of this budget.
Everyone's contract is also till the 28th, 2028 is included. Teachers included.
Well, we have a couple of unions that have not yet settled for the town as far as the school. I can't...
We are focused on line item 2 here, ma'am.
I said this at the last meeting. You can't vote for something and then get up the money and have a union that is so big and important to our town, they're not there. In other words, the teachers' union is not...
Ma'am, we're focused on line 2 here, which deals with the selectman's office. When the issue of the schools come up, we discuss that then. Other questions on line item 2? Ms. Landeville.
I want to know, at the beginning
Can you please state your name and your address?
Cindy Landeville, 20 Harvard Street. I would like to know why there are certain departments that are being held at the 2.5%, and there's others that are almost double on a lot of these questioned items I'm talking about.
Is there a line in particular? I mean, certainly some are fixed costs in this budget.
Okay, for starters, the administrative assistant.
The administrative assistant. Yes, this salary has a step increase that she recently received in this budget.
So these are step contractual agreements already in place.
This was an agreement as far as this step that she had followed the union contract, and it was decided by the Select Board that she would receive a step increase for 20 years, I believe it was, for fiscal 26.
Okay.
That's correct.
Now, yours is 3%.
Correct. I had a 3-year contract, and that was the contractual percent.
So are all these that are above the 2.5, are they all contractual consents?
No, so you'll see, well, yes, actually, you'll see several throughout the warrant for the staff for the different departments, and you may see something above 2.5%. So the unions that have settled with a COLA of 2.5%. However, the town hall union, for example, has steps at certain years, 5, 10, 20, and so on. So if that employee hits that year anniversary for step, they would get their step and their COLA. And that is for per the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement that the particular union has in place.
So does that include the fire and police departments as well?
Fire and police, we did factor in a 2.5% placeholder in the budget. However, they have not yet settled their contracts. The other three unions, the library, the town hall, I'm sorry, and DPW, yes, thank you, have all settled their contracts.
Other questions on line 2? All right, seeing none, all in favor of line 2, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Line 2 is adopted. Line 8, questions on line 8? Somebody have a question on 8? Sir?
Hello, my name is Ryan Merck. I'm of 381 Harvard Street. I'd like to know some more information about the technology department regarding the salaries and the expenses that we're looking at incurring such increases for.
Josh?
Sure. Josh McNeil, Captain Allen Way, Technology Director for the town of Whitman. I don't know if you have specific questions in relation to the salaries, but if you look back further into the program here, you'll see the breakdown in relation to the department and the salaries. The Assistant Technology Director position was a retention for us in relation to trying to retain a highly qualified, highly skilled individual that is way above par in relation to what we're actually trying to pay him at this point. And unfortunately, with all the cyber situations going on these days, I don't want to toot our own horns here in relation to the town of Whitman, but we probably have two of the best IT individuals in relation to the skill, the experience, and the education. And I think the regional school district can certainly help, with that entail in relation to the cyber incident that they experienced not too long ago. So I'm happy to answer additional questions in relation to that respect, okay. If you have them.
Regarding that, as a CISSP and a CISM, I'd like to know what kind of qualifications are justifying that. Regarding that cyber attack that you're referencing, what kind of steps are in place to mitigate that going forward?
In relation to the town?
Yes.
So the individual in this position currently has a master's degree, also has an MCPPO certification for the purchasing official, as well as an ethical hacking, certification as well. So, in addition to that, the department went through a cybersecurity audit that was paid for by Plymouth County, not by direct taxpayer funding. And we did end up getting some recommendations, strong recommendations from that audit, and we're asked to put these pieces in place, which is exactly what the $26,000 in the expense line is. And I'll tell you for sure right now that we're still working behind the scenes to try and obtain a grant. If we don't obtain the grant, then the 3 copiers we had on the list are not going to be. So essentially, I don't want people to, think that we're out here asking for money we don't need, because as a taxpayer myself, I worked for the schools for 16 years. I've been now with the town for more than 12 years. I've got a lot of experience in the system from an IT professional, and I don't make recommendations lightly, so I'm happy to answer additional questions for you.
I'm just looking for more of the bulk behind the technology expenses. What's the largest makeup of that $26,000 increase?
The largest makeup of the 26,000?
Sure.
10,000.
Are we looking at new XDR, EDR? Are we looking at new technologies? Are we looking at SOC 2 Type 2 audit and implementation? What are we looking at exactly for $26,000?
Yep. No. So I had that all broken down for you. The the bulk of that initially, the 10,000, is for the actual endpoint protection software, which includes the 24/7 monitoring behind the scenes with CyberTrust. I'm not going to go into specifics in relation to the security of the network because I don't think that's something we should do in a public meeting when we're putting this information out on the internet. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions on line 8? Ms. Landerville.
Cindy Landerville, 20 Harvard Street. I have a question, an 18.76% increase. Why isn't it coming down to like a 2.5?
I just answered that question, but I'll repeat myself again. So essentially, we are trying to retain a highly qualified, highly skilled individual that was, received an offer next door in a community next door for a lot more money. And to be honest with you, I'm very surprised that we didn't lose the opportunity there. So what we were doing here is trying to sort of, I don't even want to say meet in the middle because we really didn't even meet in the middle. We tried to, we're trying to do the right thing right now and trying to retain that individual. And again, I realize, again, as a taxpayer, the last thing I want to do is pay more money, but I don't think people also realize, which I didn't mention in the last conversation, is we actually ended up taking $15,000 that we use for outside contractors, and that's what we're using for the bulk of that increase. So we're moving money from the expense in to pay for the bulk of that retention that we're trying to do here. So again, as a taxpayer myself, the last thing I want to do is spend money. But I'll tell you, another thing is that since I've been here, we've probably attained $1.2 million in grants from the federal and the state to do a lot of the work that we do. So I don't want folks to think that we're standing here asking for more money. I mean, it's not easy to get the finance committee to be on the same page with technology. It's not easy to get the select board to be on the same page with technology because there's a lot of money involved in technology. I mean, I think we can all agree today there's cyber attacks happening every day. It's just, unfortunately, we have to be protected. We have to have the appropriate resources, and I'm just trying to do that right now. I hope and appreciate the support tonight.
Other questions on line 8? All right. All in favor of line 8, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Line 8 is adopted. Question on line 9. Do we have a question on line 9? Ms. Landerville.
Again, this is probably contractual, but assistant clerk, a 5.84% increase.
Ms. Carter?
Yes, on that particular line, the town hall union settled their contract. They added a new level, a level 4, and the assistant town clerk is under that level. Previously, it was a level 3 position, and then that position received a stipend. They rolled that stipend into his salary, and so that increased above 2.5%. It's a new level, level 4, per the CBA, collective bargaining agreement.
Other questions on 9? All right. All in favor of line 9, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Line 9 is adopted. Question on line 14. Do we have a question on 14? No? Okay. All in favor of line... I'm sorry? No, he's there to answer any questions, I think, that we might have. Yeah. Ms. Landerville.
Yes, on expenses, 15.83%.
Todd DeCudo, 6 Harvey Lane, Facilities Director for the town. The reason for that is the Facilities Department has been working with the town administrator, and we're slowly absorbing all the other town buildings' utilities and maintenance and repairs lines into the facilities budget. So we've done the library last year. This year is going to be the senior centers, utilities and maintenance and repairs, and next year it's going to be fire and police, or fire and then police the following year.
Other questions on 14? All right, all in favor of 14, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. 14 is adopted. 16, questions on line 16? Sir.
Oh, hi, Dale Campbell, 38 Auburn. I have a quick question here. Is a motion in order?
Depends what your motion is.
Okay. So we heard at the beginning of the meeting that about the Wizard of Oz and the tornado that struck and everything that went along with that. Speak up. And I apologize. So the fire department are the people that are going to respond when we have that tornado. They're the ones that are going to take care of our citizens when we need them. This is a pretty significant cut to their budget, and we heard from the chief that we're talking about $750,000 loss in revenue if we lose that second ambulance. That more than makes up what they were looking for, and they weren't even looking to increase their budget. I mean, their budget was level funded. It was less than level funded. So if it's in order, I'd like to make a motion that we level fund their budget. Is that something that I can do now, or is that out of order?
You can make a motion. If it should have a number with it, it needs to be in writing and needs to be signed.
Okay. Can I put that in writing, or is...
Yeah.
Okay. How do I go about it? Sorry. Apologies.
You can just cross it off here, write the number, and sign it,
And bring it up?
and bring it up to him.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir.
Bob Kimball, 877 Auburndale Way. Point of order. We just heard from the selectmen that there was going to be an additional $150,000 put into the fire department budget from the ambulance account. Does that have to be voted here, or can the selectmen just, on their will, add line items to the budget? I think it has to be voted at
We
town
have
meeting.
to vote the number. The town meeting has to vote the number.
So there should be an amendment to increase it by $150,000.
There would need to be an amendment.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kane.
Our intention is to do that at a fall town meeting. We want to work with the police and the fire chief to work out a plan more thoroughly so that we can appropriately work with the finance committee, but we voted to make that a priority, to make that happen in the fall.
So as we vote tonight, we're voting as recommended by the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, and the fire department can continue to have a level services personnel, and if it doesn't pass in the fall, then instead of losing 2 people, they might lose 4 people.
Well, I think, given the current information that I have, and talking with the chief, if he does want to address the town meeting, is realistically, actually, in town council, realistically, we're going to should be able to work out a plan to fund some degree of money, about $100,000, that we could potentially use for this purpose. I would rather work with the finance committee to work out some of the details, but the ambulance revenue account has been healthy, more healthy than we've been projecting. I feel confident that the projections will fall in line with what we're looking for. So we are taking a small risk, but I feel really comfortable with the risk, and I want to make it a priority given the current circumstances.
Thank you.
All right. Did you care to make that motion, sir? Yep. He wants to replace this number. He wants to replace that number with this number, which is level funded.
Yeah, which is this number here. Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Okay. Perfect, yep.
All right, so then we have a motion to amend line 16. So the select board recommendation number would be $4,110,180, which is the same number as the budget number for the current fiscal year. So that is the motion. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion of the amendment. Mr. Kane?
I appreciate the sentiment of the motion. I think public safety is a priority for us, and working with the chiefs and the finance committee to rectify this issue is something that is a priority that I would like to address at town meeting. We do not want to support this motion. It'll throw the Article 2 out of balance, and we'd have to find the money elsewhere in order to create balance. So this is would be a dangerous article, I mean, a dangerous motion to pass, in my opinion.
Ms. LaMattina?
Randy LaMattina, 6 River Birch Circle. Clearly, if you've looked at this evening, the respect for public safety is not in this budget. But I do want to remind people exactly what the ambulance reserve account was for. Specifically, gear replacement and purchase of new apparatus. A fire truck was supposed to be purchased this year. It actually went through the Building and Facilities Committee and then somehow got squashed. So what you're essentially going to do is take money that's specifically put into an account for gear, which has to be replaced every 10 years on a cycle, and money that you are going to have to come back for and push the new fire engine off even further. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but even the pushing it off this year is going to probably cost the town about another $250,000. So if we support public safety, and if you do not make this motion, the amendment, there is no guarantee that your fire department does not get cut. How you guarantee it does not get cut is to support the amendment, give them the money right now. If they have to find it, they're going to have to find it. They have free cash. They can use that. So if public safety is crucial, you support it. You don't make your largest cuts to public safety. And I would also just like to remind town meeting that about 5 years ago, the former fire chief came up, made a great proposal, and asked for an override of about $430,000 at the time to increase fire department staffing. Now, at the last town meeting, I think there was some discussion of how they could take your money and use it elsewhere. That's what's happening right here. Several years ago, you voted to increase fire department staffing, and now they're essentially going to take it away with no guarantee, absolutely no guarantee, that those firemen and that second ambulance stays in service. I urge you to support this amendment.
Ms. Otina.
Right. I simply want to state that the dollar figure suggested, $4,110,180, was the fiscal 25 appropriation for the fire department. During the past year, several senior members of the fire department retired, and new, less expensive but wonderful firefighters were hired. The fire chief didn't ask for $410,000. He asked for $410 million. He asked for $3,945,000. This number has no bearing to the discussions that the Finance Committee had with the fire chief, and I urge you to vote against this amendment.
Yes, sir.
Scott Figgins, Union President for the Firefighters. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I do appreciate what the Select Board and the Finance Committee has done this year with a very tight budget. But on behalf of the firefighters and the members of my department, I have to speak on this. As Mr. LaMattina said, 8 years ago, the town went to an override. And Mr. Evans mentioned in the Select Board meeting, in the past 18 overrides that were put forward to this town, only 2 passed in the 25-year span. One of those that passed in the 25-year span was to add 4 additional firefighters to this membership for the increased calls that happen in this town. We have not increased staffing to this department in over 70 years. Every time I come to town meeting and go to a Select Board meeting, the biggest thing we say is let the people speak. We worked in unison with the other departments. We didn't say a word because we were all going together to this override as one. And the minute the override didn't pass, money was taken from us and given to another department who was getting a substantial increase. And the other departments are also getting an increase or being level funded. We are the only department that is getting cut, and getting a significant cut. There's over 500 employees, or about 500 employees in one department. 23 positions out of 500 is not a significant cut. 2 positions to 24 members is a significant cut and will be detrimental to this town. The voters came out, and the voter difference was over 1,000 people that said no. They said no. The voters spoke. They said no. They want the services they pay for. They don't want them cut. This is substantial. There's been several numbers brought to us. There's been several numbers up and down all over the place. I spoke on this floor during the informational meetings, and I asked a specific question. How does this impact the membership of the firefighters? And I was told 1 member. The override failed, and now it's 2. And now they're taking more money from us than what was originally said. That's unheard of to me. That's not fair. That is not, we always say, don't pin each other against each other. Well, you just did. You did it. And now we're standing up for ourselves. And I'm standing up for the people who voted no, not to sacrifice public safety for another department.
Yes, ma'am.
Just checking my notes here, sorry.
Sir, if you could yell, I'd recognize the lady behind you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Tina Moniz, 20 Box Hill Run. I did just want to say everything the man behind me just said. He did say people on the override voted no. There was very, very, very clear information out there that cuts were real, that when people came out and they voted no, that there would be cuts. So if people voted no, they knew they were cutting services to police, to fire, and to a lot of departments in town, and 70% of voters in Whitman still came out and voted no. So I'm sorry to all of the departments in town that this is happening to. It is so unfortunate. And this is what the people said. They said no. So when the fire department doesn't get funded like they wanted to, they should have been out here getting people to vote yes on the override.
Other discussion of 16. Mr. Summers?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Peter Sumners from Town Council's office. In my opinion, this article has to be balanced. There is state law that towns cannot deficit spend. It's my understanding that there is not sufficient money in free cash to fund this article, and so an appropriation source would have to be identified. Thank you.
Sir.
Bob Kimball, 877 Alvinville Way. This is a complete town. It's not the fire department, it's not the school department. They were all different departments. The residents voted 70% to take a cut. And with the way I understood it from the selectmen this evening, with the addition of 2 additional people until the fall town meeting, the fire department's not losing anybody. They're still maintaining the same number of people. So we're a complete town. If you want to take this money from here, you tell me in the article where you're going to get the money from. Because I don't want to give it from anybody else. I want everybody to be as whole as they can. It's a complete town. Thank you very much.
Mr. Lynham.
There have been comments made, Frank Lynham, 907 Bedford Street. There have been comments made regarding the use of free cash, regarding balancing budgets, and I would like to simply read something that I presented to town meeting 7 years ago on this floor, almost on the same date. It was on May 7th, 2018. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read the salient points. The simple fact is we can no longer raise enough money to fund the services that the residents of Whitman have become accustomed to receiving while we continue to work within the confines of Proposition 2.5. Fixed costs continue to rise at a greater rate. These costs include technology, public safety, education, solid waste, veteran services, health, life and liability insurance, county retirement, and other post-employment benefits. We presented a budget that year that relied heavily on free cash. So what we've done year after year is we've taken the maximum earnings the town can generate and then borrowed from unspent money or unanticipated growth to fuel additional budget items, and then we start the next year at that higher number. And it's been a cycle for 5 years, and that's why we're here today. I would urge town meeting to vote the budget presented because that's what the majority of voters said at the annual town election.
Other discussion of the motion to amend line 16? All right, all in favor of amending line 16 to $4,110,180, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no? No. The motion is defeated. Other discussion of line 16? Any discussion of line 16? Okay. All in favor of line 16 as printed in the warrant, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no? No. Line 16 is adopted as printed in the warrant. Line 17. Question on 17. Sir.
John Goldrosen, 238 South Ave, and Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I certainly appreciate what the Finance Committee and Select Board have done to try to achieve a balanced budget under the circumstances of the denial of the override. But I note that, one of the goals stated in the letter from the Select Board was to retain employees and attract qualified candidates in the future. And my concern here is it appears that in line 17, if I read the backup information correctly, it's approximately a 30% cut in the salary of the building inspector. And I'm not sure what that comes out to in hours, but let's face it. If the building inspector, who's currently full-time and wants to have a salary commensurate with that, will probably lose that person. And so this will be a case of not just reducing the hours, but losing an experienced person and having to go out and see who's out there and willing to work on a part-time basis for the town. So I just think it's again one of those situations where we should realize it's not just a matter of reducing the building inspector's hours, it's probably a matter of having to bring in a new person to do the job. And I'll just add, there was a reason why we went from part-time to full-time a number of years ago, and it was because there was too much work for it to be done part-time. We had a building inspector for many years who probably was supposedly part-time but put in a whole lot more hours than that. And when he retired, I think we realized that we needed to make the position full-time, particularly in the absence of a town planner and people like that. Often I know people go to the building department office to essentially ask the questions that they would otherwise ask of a town planner or planning department in most towns. What does it take to get this done? What applications do I need to file, and so forth? So it takes time to do this. There'll be inspections that'll be delayed if somebody's not there full-time. There'll be enforcement that isn't done, things that aren't followed up on. And so it will be a loss to the town. Thank you.
Other discussion of 17? Ms. Conley? Ms. Hill, sorry.
I do that too.
Rosemary Hill, 405 Franklin Street. There are cuts you make that cause long-term financial problems. I think we talked a little bit about the schools, and I think being short-sighted with this when we're about to do the MBTA Community Act and a lot of buildings coming in, these things create revenue over time. So I would really caution any cut that might create the inability to create revenue. Or would essentially make it so that we lose more money than the cut provided. And I would say we would be at risk for this, so.
Other discussion of 17, sir.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Robert Picciarelli, Building Commissioner of the Town of Whitman. So it's clear listening to what's going on tonight that the board has identified public safety as a priority. I think what they fail to realize is that the building commissioner is acting under the Office of Public Safety and Inspections. Going back to the gentleman that spoke of catastrophic storms and tornadoes and the fire department, I think you need to realize that when those storms happen or a fire happens, the first person the fire chief's going to call is going to be me. So the hours I work are constant. I work all hours. I've gotten calls on Christmas Eve. So I go out when it's necessary. And through the board, through the moderator, I'd like to ask the board some questions. The town's proposing to create a new position for a part-time building commissioner. I was hired for a full-time building commissioner. Is it the intention of the board to terminate my current position? Do you want to take them one by one?
Carter?
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. So the position, you have an annual appointment each year, and so the appointment for last year was unchanged, as it was for a couple of years. This would just be a new annual appointment for the position, for the reduced hours that the former building commissioner had worked for many, many years. So it would be a new renewal.
It's a part-time position.
A part-time position, salary went up in the hourly rate.
I was hired for what?
You were hired for full-time, right? And with a one-year annual appointment.
And this is a new position that you're creating.
We are reducing the position to part-time. It's not a new, it's not in addition to, it's a change to, because of the budget crisis that we're in.
I won't split hairs.
Yeah.
Other questions on 17?
I think he has more. I have more questions.
Okay, we have to give other people a chance to talk, but go, you have one more.
Can the town administrator or member of the select board tell me what the only two positions that are state mandated to be licensed or certified within the town hall?
Nope.
Yeah.
Ms. Carter?
What positions must have?
What is state mandated within the town hall employment to be licensed or certified?
To be licensed or certified. I'm not sure of that.
It would be the building commissioner and the head assessor.
Okay, so we have to let somebody else speak, and then once other people have asked a question, you have more questions, you can speak tomorrow. Mr. Lamatine?
Lamatine, 6 Riverbird Circle. Some of you remember I did have a short time on the Board of Selectmen myself. While I was on, the building inspector got increased to a full-time position. That didn't just happen arbitrarily because Bob Curran was retiring. Mr. Curran, through the course of his career, went above and beyond, well over a part-time position. But when the board looked at this, there was a need for a full-time building inspector. Building is not slowing down in this town. In fact, we have several large projects going on right now. Home construction, apartments, retail, commercial. Again, this is another cut that does not make sense to me. One, through code enforcement, Mr. Picciarelli can actually create revenue. So when we talk about positions that create revenue, it would have been fantastic if one of the previous speakers would have got up when the fire department, because they are a major revenue producer. Folks, you need to look at what you're doing. Okay, this is why we're at town meeting. What the Finance Committee and the Selectmen have given you are suggestions. The people that sit in this room are the ones that make the budget. So determine what's important to you. But if you really take a good hard look at this budget, you are gutting and cannibalizing town services, all for the benefit of one. So take a look at it, but again, I do not agree with this cut, because this is just a foolish cut on a position that was looked at for quite a long time, and there was a need for a full-time building inspector. So if you've ever had a problem with your neighbor doing a project or their yard is a mess and they're keeping things, that's the building inspector through code enforcement. That's how we're keeping the town clean. That's how you're making sure that people don't have several unregistered cars in their yard. There's things that he does that create revenue, and again, it is foolish to cut revenue-creating positions.
Other discussion of 17? Mr. Goldrosen.
I think to just get this before the town meeting in an organized way, I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Moderator, to increase line 17, building inspector's office salaries to $185,650.
Okay, we have a motion then to increase the line item 17 to $185,650. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion of the motion to amend. Mr. Kane.
Sure. This isn't an easy discussion. It's not ideal to cut down the building inspector. At this point with the budget, there isn't like a good choice. We looked at new growth projections for next year, and the new growth is going to be actually pretty low. That's what the assessors are saying. We've looked at revenue that the building inspector has collected in the past. The revenue that Mr. Curran had collected was okay when he was part-time, certainly in line with what we expect to be collected. So the amount of money that we're talking about is really pretty small. Again, this isn't a good choice. It's not ideal, but it's part of like the way that we were balancing the budget. So I'd urge you to vote against the amendment and support the budget as presented, please.
Other discussion of the motion to amend line 17. Sir.
So just to clarify, that number that was presented, the 185,650, that's inclusive of the wiring inspector, the plumbing inspector, and the gas inspector. So that is not my salary. That's inclusive of all of the inspectors in my department, just so everybody knows. As far as growth is concerned, let me tell you what's coming to Whitman. The state has just enacted a new emergency housing act that includes multifamily dwellings, housing, accessory dwelling units, lot merger relief, and a separate legislature for the MBTA overlay district. You currently have multiple 3- and 4-story buildings in the queue getting ready to be built. So the town of Whitman and every other town is about to explode. So just to clarify, it may have been slow, but you are about to grow.
Other discussion of the motion to amend this line item. All right. All in favor then of amending line 17 to $185,650, say yes? Yes. No? No. I think we'll need to do a standing count on this one. If our tellers could count the folks in their sector. All in favor of amending, please stand.
was that?
I'm sorry, 41, was that the number? Yeah, 41. 30 and 8. Okay, if you please be seated. And all opposed to amending line 17, please rise. $19. 9. 18. So 79 in favor?
79 yes, 47 no.
79 yes, 47 no, so the line is amended. Discussion of the amended line item. Mr. Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Peter Summers from Town Council's office, again standing to opine that the budget needs to be balanced. The town cannot deficit spend in order to pay for salaries. Thank you.
Another discussion of the amended line item of 17. All right, then, Ms. Hill?
What line do we propose to take the money out of, or stabilization or free cash? Is there a proposed place to take it? It has to be balanced, so we have to take it from one place to put it in the other. So I propose an amendment to the amendment, essentially, to take it out of free cash, to put it into, to take that money from free cash to...
Second motion. Right, then we await that motion.
Do we have enough free cash?
$32,018 from free cash and $153,632 raise and appropriate. How do you phrase it? In other words, just the difference.
Go, come on.
They're trying to do some math.
But they shouldn't have to do the math. Should be the financial wizards. Put like free cash in there and stuff, they have to do a new amendment because it's different.
I don't know.
I'm not putting it in my notes, so it's not really right. That's okay. This is my amendment. This is all I have. Hero. I'm not doing it. So.
Sir, if you have an amendment, could you please present it?
Sorry for the delay. I'm trying to get what's legal here. So, with the town meeting having voted to in support of 185,650, and the question being raised about the source, I move to raise and appropriate $153,632 and appropriate and transfer $32,018 from free cash for a total of $185,650. So the intent of that is to say beyond the amount beyond what the selectmen recommended would come from free cash.
So we have an motion then to amend line 17 so that to raise and appropriate $153,632 and to transfer from free cash $32,018 to bring the total to $185,650. Do we have a second? Second. Discussion of the motion to amend. Ms. Otina.
If the point of this amendment is to restore the building inspector to full-time, his salary would have been $99,613. The recommendation was to make it a part-time position at $68,000. The difference is $31,613. It may be nitpicking, but we've spent months combing through these budgets. So if you want to restore the building inspector to a full-time position, it shouldn't be $32,018 from free cash. It should be $31,613.
Other discussion of the motion to amend? All right, then all in favor of amending line 17, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no? No. The amendment is adopted. So, any further discussion of line 17 as amended? All right, then all in favor of line 17 as amended, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no? No. Line 17 is adopted as amended. Line 21. There's a question on 21. Ms. Fox.
Mary Fox, 565 Washington Street, Apartment 5. And yes, I am a former educator. I guess my main question is this. I'm sure the operating expense is way up there. I am sure the non-mandated busing, which has been discussed in the past, and we can't seem to get past the fact that it's a combined district and walkers and this and that. But we have to arrive at something. Okay, the next thing though is what I really want to know. The teachers have yet to come to a contract. Is that a yes or no?
That's incorrect.
Excuse
me.
Okay.
Jeff Simonak, Superintendent of Schools, we ratified our contract on Wednesday.
Okay. Now, yeah, but is it here?
Yes.
Okay, what about your salary?
Everything is in here.
I'm saying, did you ask for and get a one-year contract to remain?
My contract goes through fiscal 28. Fiscal 28. I have a contract through 2028.
You already had it?
I have one in place right now.
I know, but is it not true that at the school committee meeting, you asked for a vote of confidence, and I quote, with a wink and a smile or something, you were already down with the selectmen? I know this is really, but I want to know.
I'm not really sure what you're asking me. I am not currently in any negotiation with the school committee. I had been, and I pulled it off the table prior to the override failure.
See, the next time this comes out, and by the way, I will get to Part B. The next time this comes out, I want names and salaries, because I am going to say this only once. Okay, it is that important. New teachers and teachers in mandated positions, we can switch. That's state and federal mandated. We have no real choice. However, new teachers, it should never be last in, first out. That's unfair and unreasonable. They are not making a high salary at all, and they have to get a master's within 5 years. How do I know all this? I do. And I just feel it's not even, how do you do that? Young teachers do work the hardest. They put in the time in extracurricular. They do a lot. Senior teachers, buy them out.
These are questions and comments that are probably directed best to the school committee.
You know why? Because I think that everybody in this town thinks separate. The town versus the school. It is, as that other man said here, a complete town. A complete town. Students are our future. I do say, though, administrators are not. They will jump. They will go somewhere else when they retire. And we'll be paying the bill, the pension. I'm very fortunate that New York City has a solid business block to pay my pension.
Mr. Lamattina.
Randy Lamattina again, 6 River Birch Circle. My question would be to the superintendent. How many retirements do you have this year?
Currently, I had one retire in November. I have total of 3 teachers retiring, and I believe at this point 7 paraprofessionals retiring as of today.
Okay, and how much E&D did you put into this year's budget?
Nothing.
None.
Correct.
So for people that don't know out there, E&D is basically the school's version of free cash. What they want to tell you...
Could you address me, please, Mr. Lamattina? Address me, not...
What they want to tell you is it's emergency money, but technically it's excess and deficiency. And consistently, year after year, they have a proven source where they put money into E&D and have consistently taken it out. Now, we are cutting town services. Basically, if they would have kicked in E&D this year, if there would have been a push by the selectmen to get that done, we would not be cutting town services. So if we want to say it's one-time money, they do it every year, it's a consistent revenue source, they should be supplying some E&D. So at this point, I will make a motion to amend, and my motion will be to amend the school district line 21 down to $19,417,569. So again, like I've said, this is a consistent source of revenue for the schools. And they have kicked it in year after year, they have contributed. Why is it not being done this year is my question.
Okay, we have a motion then to amend line 21 to read $19,417,569. Discussion. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second. All right, discussion, Ms. Hill.
There's and I probably going to play off of Jeff a little bit, but year after year, we weren't borrowing against the school, but the schools. We have our largest building, that middle school right now, and we're borrowing against that school budget, and because we had used E&D, it actually has affected our ratings. We're actually going to, it sounds like a great idea today, but when you get the bill from, and Mary Beth Carter might be able to speak a little bit more, when you get the bill from your increased borrowing, it's not a savings again. E&D was never a good idea, ever. And if you look at the vocational schools, they have their E&D completely full so that they can borrow at a lower rate. We are not in that position right now, and we're kind of clamoring to borrow still. So that would be a really, really bad financial plan. It was a bad financial plan in the past that shouldn't have been done, and it shouldn't be done now. Additionally, if you vote anything different than what's sent over, it just goes back to another town meeting. It doesn't do anything. It goes back to the school committee. They can increase the budget. They say try not to, but the law does allow you to increase it. So I would really caution against this.
So may I comment,
Yes,
please?
sir.
So I understand that we didn't use E&D this year. We certified about $625,000 worth of E&D. We could keep up to 5% of our budget. $625,000 is not close. Certain members of this board and these boards have cautioned against using E&D year after year. This year, the school committee chose not to use any E&D. My third point is if this budget isn't certified tonight at the number that's requested, the school district will not have a budget as of July 1st, which will lead to a super town meeting of both communities. And we will go to a 1/12 budget on fiscal 25 as of July 1st. It was challenging to reduce a budget to the number of $1,750,000. We were able to do that. The school committee affirmed that recommendation by me 7-3. There was 2.5 hours worth of conversation back and forth. It is a reduction of 3 teaching positions. Actual people don't have jobs as of July 1st, and 13 other folks are filling positions or have the opportunity to fill positions. I thank Ms. Otina for giving you some numbers, but we also cut $400,000 worth of curriculum that we've built up since 2018. Prior to 2018, we had no curriculum K-8 in the district. I've also reduced the athletic budget $250,000 contingent upon user fees. If the user fees don't equal $250,000, certain sports programs will not run in the district next year, and that will be up to the school committee at the next school committee meeting. The proposal I had for user fees increases from $300 for your first sport, or $250 for your first sport, and your second sport is $50, your third sport is $50 with a family cap of $600. I'm proposing a $500 per sport per season with no family cap. So a parent with one daughter or son playing 3 sports, it'll be $1,500. That's to offset the $250,000 deficit. The other piece of this budget, I was always told from both towns to budget for a 5% assessment increase. I fought that 5% assessment increase for years, saying we needed more. If you look at the proposal we have here, it's a 4% assessment increase under the number that this community has always said the schools could rely upon.
Ms. Kelly.
My name is Lauren Kelly. I live at 25 Martin Street in Whitman. I've been a member of this town for 47 years, and this is the first time that I've ever gotten up to speak. I'm also a retired teacher. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and everyone over there. I know the hours upon hours that goes into the work that you're doing. The bottom line is we need to pass this budget. We have to keep the town moving and for our next fiscal year. And you know what? If we don't like what's being presented tonight, then everyone here needs to get involved. As I say, you have to put those SAP signs on your head. You have to become sophisticated and poised, get involved, and if you don't like what's going on, promote change. But now, tonight is not the night to promote that change. We have a sound budget. I know how hard you've all worked. And I hope everyone here does. And I don't think they realize the number of hours and hours and hours that goes into it. So please, as a town, put your differences aside, back what's been presented, and let's move on. And everybody who doesn't like what's going on now, put yourself on a board. Thank you.
Mr. Kane.
Just quickly, I spent a lot of time at the school committee meeting this year and in years past, but specifically this year, and they had a lot of serious discussion about the budget. They came to this number. I mean, we asked them to cut about $1 million out of the deficit. They came to that number in a really difficult way. It was not easy for them. They went back and forth. At first, they were going to They really were considering increasing the assessment to us, and they came down to this 4% at the very end. I think they're headstrong. I'm not just saying this, I think they are actually headstrong. I think if we kick this number back to them, I think they'll likely let the state, if we go to super town meeting and things don't work out because their numbers are still high, the state ultimately takes over. There are steps in between, but they know that the state will take over. When the state takes over, they look at things like comparable districts. They look at things like, what do you currently have for services in your district? We don't have librarians. We don't have foreign language. Through the eyes of the state, we are not funding our district appropriately. And you and I might disagree about that, or we might disagree with the state, but right now, if you look at our minimum level contribution and things like this, terms that are being used at the school committee last week, if the state came in and was to evaluate our budget, our school budget, they would really, there's a good chance that they could increase the number, not decrease. And that's a significant risk, because we then lose control. We don't have the ability to monitor our Article 2. What we currently have is a number that was agreed upon with the school committee recently, and was worked collaboratively with the school administration to attain. I strongly recommend that we support the school assessment as it is proposed in the original Article 2 in front of you, not the amendment.
Sir. Ken Layla, Auburn Street, Whitman. I need some help trying to understand something on the school budget, and correct me if I'm wrong. Back when COVID was around, I think the state gave extra funding to the school department to hire extra staff on a temporary basis. Are those still...
So it wasn't the state, it was the federal government.
Okay, federal government, but that funding is stopped, correct?
That funding stopped at the end of fiscal 24.
And now the staffing that was temporary, are they still employed?
So I had hired teachers through COVID, yes, and they stayed. Putting pieces into play that were necessary since 2015. In this budget, most of those people that we put into play during COVID are now gone. Those positions are now gone. So the gains that we've made with our students through supports are now going to be gone, those 23 positions.
So those 23 positions you're getting rid of now are technically the temporary staff that you hired?
During COVID, they asked us to spend certain amount of money for multiple things: heating units, ventilation units, anything related to masks and things, and also student supports. We have been asking for money since 2016 to add some of those supports. We used that funding at that point to furnish what the students needed since 2016 to put those in place. In this budget, with these reductions, those positions are gone.
Okay, so the school is basically funding whatever from that point on from COVID.
If you want to look at it that way, yeah, we were putting pieces in place to make sure students achieved what they needed.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good to see you all. I'm sorry I was at home.
Could you please identify yourself?
I'm getting Stephen Boyce, 39 Beale Ave, Whitman Hanson School Committee, also a former member of these fine folks. I was at home planning for my reduction in force under the Trump administration Reorganization and Reduction Act. My positions listed out there, and I mention that because sometimes you have to plan to go ahead in life. Well, we've been planning a long time on the school committee. I just entered my senior year, 12th year, on the school committee. I'm the senior person there. I've heard a few of you talk, but I heard it talked about our free cash, our excess and deficiency. So I jumped in the Jeep, as badly as that's running right now, because I don't have any will or any forward motion right now other than my own town and the schools and the young kids that we see every single day to make sure that they get educated. I'm here because that excess and deficiency we never built up. When I was on this committee and was that young lady right there, I said, John McEwen, I'd give you $700,000 right now to just save the money. So $616,000 And I don't think, I'm sorry, Mr. LaMartina, I'll call you out. I don't think your child's been in the high school. I don't think your child's been in the...
Please do not address individuals in the audience.
Fine. Okay, Mr. Moderator, I apologize for that. But I don't think someone who hasn't had their child in 13 years of public high school, or public schooling, has a right to question us like we're the problem.
You want to bring up my daughter?
Okay,
I'm not
that's
bringing
enough.
up
We're not having a back and forth here, okay?
No. Folks,
I've got the floor.
Let me tell you something. They're right. My daughter...
Mr. Boyce does have the floor. Mr. Boyce does have the floor.
Mr. Whitman Public School until the
Mr.
6th
LaMartina.
grade. And then we pulled her out because the
if you don't
Whitman
stop,
Hanson School
I would ask you to leave.
was
I'd ask you to leave the
failing
meeting.
her. And you know what? And she's
Mr.
going
LaMartina.
back to public education, Steve. She's going
Mr.
to the US
LaMartina.
Naval Academy.
No. Quiet. No.
Why
no.
don't you get...
You quiet. Enough.
Folks, do not fall for the fear-mongering. If you notice, they've done nothing
If you
but
need help finding the door, Mr.
We're in this
LaMartina, the
position
constable can assist
because
you.
they use temporary money for full-time positions, and they're now cutting town service.
You're out.
If you want your services back, follow the amendment.
There doesn't need to be an amendment.
We are going to keep this
And my
discussion civil,
apologies
please.
to the LaMartinas and anyone else. I'm serious. Thank you. Here's my cell phone.
Are you through, Mr. Boyce?
You know what, Mr. Moderator, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have come down in a panic. I'm about to lose my job in the federal government after 30 years of service. It's a little bit tough on me.
We're talking about amendment.
I know what you're talking about.
That's,
But I'm
that's
talking
what
about
I'm
the
trying to
same
stay focused on
thing
here.
here.
That's enough.
Okay, if you think I'm out of order, I'll step down. Fine, thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to amend line 17. Ms. Landreville.
Can somebody explain exactly what this E&D account is? And also, I have a question as to how much we have this year in free cash.
So excess and deficiency is the regional school district's version of free cash, and I believe it's $650,000. I might be off 5,000 either way.
Other discussion of the motion to amend line 21. Sir.
Chris Marks, 291 Hog Memorial Drive, Whitman Hanson School Committee member. I am actually going to, in a certain way, agree with Mr. LaMartina and some of the things that he said, specific about the building commissioner salary being reduced and the fire salaries being reduced. I think those are bad reductions. I also think every reduction that we've had to make in the school committee is a bad reduction. I think all of these are bad reductions. But the towns have spoken and loudly have spoken, and cuts have to be made, and this is kind of where we're at. Every cut or every modification to this budget that we're asking, as the council has said a couple of different times tonight, has to be balanced. These are not, we can just change this line item and hope for the best. Those monies have to come from somewhere. I appreciate the work that the select board and the finance committee and the school committee and the school administration have made to get us to a number that nobody likes, but everybody has swallowed and just kind of understands this is where we have to be because this is where we're at financially because of the position the failed override has put us in both towns. Thank you.
Other discussion of the motion to amend line 21. All right, all in favor of amending line 21 to read $19,417,569, say yes. Opposed, no? No. The motion fails. Discussion of line 21. All right, all in favor of line 21 as printed in the warrant, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Line 21 is adopted. Question on 23. Question on line 23. Ms. Landrieu.
I have a question on the divisional expense. Can somebody explain that and such the increase?
Dave LeMay, 23 Star Street, Water and Sewer Superintendent. The big increase on this is the water and sewers portion of paying for the utilities for the new DPW facility.
That much of an increase?
Yes, it's about almost $30,000.
All right, other questions on 23? All right, all in favor of line 23, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. 23 is adopted. Question on 24. Was there a question on 24? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Danielle Clancy, 21 Bloss Road. I'm Chair of Board of Health. I first want to say that my daughter went to Whitman-Hanson Public Schools and got an excellent education, so excellent that she went to Thayer Academy and graduated with honors. So thank you very much, Whitman-Hanson. I appreciate that. And we also love Thayer Academy. We have no beefs with Thayer. I'm here again. If you know me, you know I hate public speaking, hate it. But here I am. I feel that part of my job is to advocate for the Board of Health. We consist of a volunteer board, and you'll find all these boards are volunteer. We do not get paid to do our job. And we're getting, especially the smaller boards, I think we're getting increasingly frustrated every year to try to do more and more with less and less. My board, my health department consists of the health inspector, who's also the department head, and we have an administrative assistant who works 4 days a week, 8 hours a day, and we have a part-time, very part-time public health nurse who works 5 hours a week. Our administrative assistant is being cut to 3 days a week, so that is an 8-hour cut. Which I don't understand, because we were told when this started that when the override didn't pass, that we would not be cutting health and safety, and apparently the Board of Health isn't included in that, which I'm very upset about. So, you know, we really can't afford to lose a person in our department 1 whole day a week. And if you don't know how town hall runs, it's union. The administrative assistants, I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. The administrative assistants are union. So what's going to happen is, and this isn't made clear to you, that they're going to bump each other. So we're losing our administrative assistant not for 1 day a week, we are losing our administrative assistant, period, because she is going to go bump somebody that's lesser out of a better job. So she is going to go bump each other, and that's what's going to happen in town hall. They're going to go all bump each other till somebody else is out of a job. And we're sad about that. She's good, she's been trained, she's been there for as long as I've been there, just a bit longer. And as you hear, the Board of Health used to be part-time. The Board of Health has not been part-time for more than 5 years. And the reason for that is we have so many state mandates we have to fill. And I think it's going to be really hard for Dan to do it, and we're going to have to do it on a triage basis, whereas if you call with a complaint, we're not going to get to you. We're just not going to get to you for weeks and weeks. Dan's alone, he's not going to do it. And the other thing is, you know, I just want to touch on this briefly. I remember 4 years ago, I got a lot of phone calls, thousands a week, about when could you get the shot? When could you get the shot? They all came into the Board of Health. If we have a mandate like that again, we're never, ever going to be able to fulfill that need. So something to keep in mind. I know the town spoke. I know there have to be cuts. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what's going on in town hall, how all the administrative assistants and everybody that's union, the health inspector is not, but all the administrative assistants are union. They're all bumping each other now, so we're all losing our trained people to other spots, and public health doesn't seem to be a priority. The other thing is, I've never seen morale as low as it is right now in town hall. We've lost a lot of good people already. They literally just left because they know their jobs are on the chopping block or they're afraid, and we're losing more. And morale is just at rock bottom. I've never seen it this low in the 6 years I've been in the building. In the last year, it's just plummeted, and the last 2 months has been horrible. So I just want to give you an idea of what's going on and how this is going to play out at our lower level. I'm not talking fire, police, I'm talking in town hall, in, the Council on Aging, the other smaller departments. So thank you for giving me a couple minutes of your time. I appreciate it, and hopefully I don't have to speak next year. Take care.
Other questions on 24? All right, all in favor of line 24, say yes. Opposed, no. 24 is adopted. 26, we have a question on line 26. Sir.
Good evening. Declan Ware, Director of Veteran Services for the town of Whitman. I just want to say it's been a great honor to assume this role. I was hired on in early March 2025 with the understanding that this was a full-time position. It is my duty to aid and assist over 750 veterans and their families living in our community. Assistance comes in the form of Chapter 115 benefits, filing VA disability claims for our disabled veterans, state annuities, and tax abatements in coordination with our assessor's office. I'm not taking the floor tonight to go on the attack on any other department. However, I will say in 3 years in this town, we have had 3 different veterans agents, myself being the third one. The veterans in our community deserve stability and a familiar face. They need someone who will be readily available to them when in need. The proposal to cut the director's role to part-time will inhibit the ability to take care of our own. And I just want to cite some regulations from CMR 108 CMR Code of Massachusetts Regulation. A town with a population of over 12,000 people requires a full-time veterans agent. And I'm going to quote the regulation right here from the CMR. Section 1405, reduction in the reimbursement allowance. Failure of a veterans agent to comply with the requirements of 108 CMR shall result in a finding that the city or town which employs the veterans agent is not in compliance with the requirements of Massachusetts General Law 115 and shall further result in the reduction of the reimbursement allowance to the town paid by the Commonwealth under Massachusetts General Law 115. And the reduction shall remain in effect until the city or town is in full compliance pursuant to a time period designated by the Secretary or until a plan is agreed upon by the Secretary and the city or town that employs the veterans agent for that agent to be in full compliance by an agreed upon date or until such time the veterans agent shall be removed. Now, when we're looking at the numbers, fiscal year 23, we issued out $132,362 in veterans benefits. We typically get a 75% reimbursement one time a year. That 75% reimbursement would amount to $99,272. For example now, if I get cut to part-time, we'd be cut down to 50% reimbursement from the state. That number, if we have another year like FY23, we'd then be cut down to $66,181. I ask the town, are we really doing enough for our veterans? I yield the floor.
Sir.
David Chapin, 5 Hutchinson Terrace. I'm also the DEV commander here in Whitman. Declan took most of my thunder, but according to the state, like he said, are we doing enough for our veterans? Is Declan allowed to do his outreach? Is he going to be able to do it if he's part-time? Probably not. How many veterans are going to go unhelped without the help that he has to provide being full-time? If he gets cut down to part-time, according to the state laws, that's not even allowed. I've been talking with the state at the Executive Office of Veteran Services, to cut him down to part-time is against the law. If you have a population of 12,000 people or more, which Whitman does, he should be full-time. The veterans shouldn't suffer for their time in service now that they're civilians. They should be put first. Thank you for your time.
Sir.
Ryan Merck of 381 Harvard. Chief Clancy mentioned an important aspect of town services with regard to public safety, with regard to the reliance of mutual aid from other towns. I think regardless of whatever side of the fence that you fall on from a political standpoint, I think it's hard to ignore that from a geopolitical standpoint, we have some rough waters ahead of us as a country. I think for us as a town to consider knocking the VSO position down to a part-time status, not only being against state law, but I think it's morally reprehensible, and it goes directly against saying that we support our veterans. I think, if legal, I'd like to make a motion to draw the salary from Chapter 118, as I understand it, and if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but I'd like to make that motion.
Needs to be in writing, needs to be signed.
Okay. And before I bring this up, I'd like to say, just to add a little more color to mentioning about reliance on mutual aid. When we think of veterans and the geopolitical standpoint,
I just recommend you take it from free cash rather than logistically, it'll make more sense.
I'm not an expert on that. I would call on Chris Buckley from East Bridgewater if that was the case, but
You can do it from the 115 reimbursements, not necessarily the 115 funds, but we have 60-something thousand left of free cash.
Do I have the numbers for you?
I don't quite understand this. I'm sorry.
So we will get the reimbursement. So much for doing this.
The point that I wanted to make about the mutual aid and dependence upon other towns, given the troubled waters that I see us facing as a country, is I feel that veterans and service members are going to be at an increased risk in the near future for incurring things of PTSD, increased issues at home when they do return home from any type of deployment. And I want to make sure that we as a town are well equipped and prepared to support those people who are out performing missions on our behalf.
All right, so we have a motion to allocate a salary to, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading this. Motion to allocate or
Sorry about my poor handwriting.
status for the VSO.
You got to have the money, a dollar amount. So
A dollar amount?
you have to put a dollar amount.
Can you give me the dollar amount this is being cut from? $11,791.
So you want to- If Justin may want to amend the appropriation source, I'm not sure if he will want to after this is made.
Okay.
He can make another motion to amend while a motion to amend is pending.
Okay.
But then he can't make another motion to amend. Can I see that?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Let me see.
No, sorry.
Okay, it's time to withdraw salary. It can't be or, so he's got to do something. Motion to allocate some to support full-time. From where? Where's the money coming from?
Free cash.
Oh, you can't use or, yeah, you can't do that. You got to have a decision. You're making a motion to allocate one of the support to full-time, so using free cash. That's good. Cross that one off, initial it, and sign that.
Can you say appropriate? Would you mind saying appropriate and transfer here?
No, appropriate, because it's only the free cash he's looking at. Let him do it.
We've been saying appropriate and transfer. He can sign it.
Cross off the top one too, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's good.
13,265?
No, he did the 11.
11,765.
Legality.
So I should change this then? Yeah, 13. Give me 2.5% increase. 13,265. Yep.
Initial that, please. That change.
We agreed?
Okay. All right. All right, so then we have a motion to appropriate and transfer $13,265 to support maintain full-time status for the Whitman VSO using free cash. Do we have a second? Second. All right. Discussion of the motion to amend.
She said I can speak. Thank you all, and thank you, Rosemary, for letting me go ahead. I just wanted to address the legality question here. I have taken a look at this special act and the regulation. It indicates that if this position is reduced to part-time, once the current agent leaves service, then you must appoint a full-time agent or join a district. So I do believe that reducing the position to part-time would be legal. Whether or not to do so is up to town meeting.
Ms. Hill?
Rosemary Hill, 405 Franklin Street. This position has been pretty underfunded for a while, actually. That's why we came in last year, and we did an auxiliary account to make sure that there was money from the outside that could be fundraised to do this. And in terms of, I did a quick review of local veterans agents that are about full-time, and they're about $80,000. So basically, his salary now is a part-time salary. We cut it back, he leaves, you're really not going to find somebody to come in. What that means is you won't have somebody to facilitate very complicated processes for veterans to get what they need. Remember, a lot of veterans come back and they're in a state where they're frazzled or they do need assistance. So you're creating an obstacle that will make it so they will not get assistance. So I'm asking you to really consider this amendment and accept it. There's a means in free cash, and then, you know, we can look next year to figure out how we're going to make sure that we can afford it. Thank you so much.
All right, other discussion of the motion to amend. Ms. Landreville?
Yes, I still haven't gotten an answer as to how much free cash we have.
Ms. Carter? Or Ms. Otina?
We started with $108,000. We then funded the building inspector's budget, and if we add $13,000 back to the veterans agent, we'll be left with about $63,000 in free cash.
All right, other discussion of the motion to amend? Sir?
Mr. Moderator, Chris Buckley, Southeast Massachusetts Veteran Service Association President, permission to speak, Mr. Moderator?
You may speak.
Thank you, sir. Just to give everybody some background, in 2019, Abington and Whitman were in a district. That's why it was able to be a part-time position and funded as such. When they broke apart Abington and Whitman had to fund their own full-time position. Abington, to this date, has fully supported their VSO, and things are thriving over there. That is not the case here. And the only other thing I wanted to bring up is if you go through with reducing Declan's hours from 31 to 24, who answers the phone when that veteran calls? When the transition has come up, it's been my office in East Bridgewater, Abington, Brockton, Hanson, and Rockland. It is imperative that you keep it a full-time position, or else those calls are coming straight back here to the town, and the town administrator can handle that. Thank you.
All right. Other discussion of the motion to amend? All right. All in favor of amending line 26, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. All right. Line 26 is amended. Discussion of the amended line item? All right. All in favor of line 26 as amended, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Article 26, line 26 is adopted as amended. Line 28. We had a question on 28? No question on 28? All right. Ms. Landerville.
I had a question on 28, however, it's been brought to my attention that we are good for at least this year.
Okay. Other questions on 28? All right. All in favor of line 28, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Line 28 is adopted. Line 35. Question on 35. Sir.
Ryan Tressel, 210 Temple Street. I just had a question about the line item for interpretive services. I know it's only $500. I was just curious if someone from the Select Board's office could explain what those interpretive services were and why they're no longer needed.
Ms. Carter?
That was a line that we've had in the budget for $500 for the last few years for translation, and we have not used any of that money in the past few years. So looking for every dime, every place we could cut, that was just an area that we had not used. So we zeroed that out.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other discussion of 35? All right, then all in favor of line 35, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Line 35 is adopted unanimously. Okay, and that's Article 2. All right, Article 3, to see if the town will vote to approve a 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Whitman Police Union, Mass COP Local Number 494, for the period commencing July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2028, and to appropriate a sum of money from free cash to fund the cost items the collective bargaining agreement or take any other action relative thereto. Was there a motion?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to pass over both Article 3 and Article 4.
Okay. We have a motion then and a second to pass over Article 3 and 4. And a second, any discussion? Yes, Ms. Fox.
I might back to, I must be confused. When let's say we vote this through, and I understand that it's between a rock and a hard place. What I really have to know, and everyone here, I think, who did not get the contract? It's good for 3 years. We can't really consider, what are we doing?
Ms. Fox, we have a motion now to pass over these articles. In other words, not to act on them tonight.
Yeah, I know, but I guess what I'm trying to say is when are we going to be sure that the police, the fire, the teachers, whoever has not been taken care of, when are we going to know what that is going to cost, what the negotiations?
They're ongoing right now, the negotiations for both the police and fire. So we will not know that until, the contracts are fully negotiated and settled.
Okay, can I ask one more time? Who negotiates these contracts?
The town negotiates with a member of the Board of Selectmen and the town's attorney, the union's attorney, and then there are people stewards from each union that come to the table to negotiate.
I'm just concerned. Where I think, is when you negotiate, and we say we're passing this for 1 million, whatever it is. I want to be sure everyone is included in the bill, you know, in what we got to pay. And right now I'm hearing certain groups, unions, are not included because they didn't negotiate, and I want to know why. You set the dates, I want to know.
They are actively negotiating with the town at this point, and they do every 3 years. All 5 unions came up at the same time this year for renewal. 3 out of the 5 have settled. The other 2 are in negotiations. It is ongoing currently.
Okay. Any further discussion of the motion to pass over Articles 3 and 4? All right, all in favor of passing over Articles 3 and 4, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Okay, Articles 3 and 4 are passed over. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor of adjourning, say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. We are adjourned.